Arizona is the fastest growing state in the western part of the country and has been since 2006. But with that comes a lot more population, obviously. And the question now starts to arise, what's the viability and the sustainability of that heading to Arizona's future? Can Arizona, the state with its natural resources and the lack thereof, sustain the entire population growth that is here currently in 2022 and will be here in the future? Stay tuned. We're going to cover that and more right now. Let's go. Hey everyone, I'm Kelly Cook. I'm a local realtor here with the Kelly Cook Real Estate Group, and we have this amazing channel called Everything Phoenix. Why? Because we're passionate about educating everybody that isn't familiar with Phoenix about this great city, this great state, this great area. So whether you live here or not, thank you for joining our YouTube channel. And in this video in particular, this is a good one. We're gonna cover some really cool stuff here. So everyone has a good outlook on where this city is going, okay, for the future. So let's start with population, okay? We talked about Arizona being one of the fastest growing states in the entire country, and that's no secret whatsoever, especially post-COVID, okay? Population-wise, let's just go back to the 1940s, okay? 1940 exact, there were about 500,000 people living in the entire state of Arizona, okay? Now, Arizona has 7.6 million people in 2022. That is a huge increase. Now, the biggest increase decade over decade was the 50s to 1960s. And the reason why we believe that had the biggest attribution to that was the invention of the central air conditioning. But you go, hold on here. Central air was invented before the 50s. You're right, it was. Technically, it was invented several decades prior to this. However, it didn't really become more mainstream and affordable and available, especially in buildings and houses, until the late 50s going into the 60s. And that's why you saw about a 76% increase in population in the entire state from just a 10-year time period back then. Since then, population has grown in double digits from decade over decade, every single decade. And now 7.6 million people in the entire state, with about 5 million or so, just under, being in the Phoenix metropolitan area alone. So it's now the 4th or 5th largest state in the country, depends on which publication you poll or ask, but it is a growing city, and it's going to be easily number 4, and who knows, maybe number 3 here over the next several years, the way this is going currently. So with that comes some questions about sustainability. Can the city sustain that type of growth for industry and just flat out humans in the future? Because the one resource Arizona lacks the most, you guessed it, water, okay? So we're gonna discuss all of that so you have a good idea where we stand with that in the state and how that works in the state of Arizona in this video. Okay, now before we get to water and that discussion, because it's quite interesting, guys, let's just talk about housing for a second. All right, now right now there's no question that we have a shortage of housing supply in the Phoenix, Arizona area. No doubt about that. That's pretty well publicized. With the appreciation growth that we've had, the main reason why is an imbalance of supply versus demand. So the whole point here and moving forward is to get that more in balance as we move into the future. That obviously, there's a lot of things outside of the control of Arizona, like supply chain management and, hopefully no more pandemics and things of that nature. But the growth is here, the demand is here, home builders are here. So now it's just a matter of just getting the labor pool into our state, our city here, as well as supplies. So that being said, there is a new huge subdivision. I call it subdivision, but it's going to be a darn near a city, right? Called Superstition Vistas. If you go look it up online and Google it, you'll see multiple articles about Superstition Vistas. Guys, this is a 175,000 acre development that is just east of Queen Creek and Mesa, that touches the border there just outside the 202 Santan loop, okay? Now, it is a enormous plot of land, and it is going to be developed with single family housing and other types of housing throughout that entire area. But to give you perspective, that plot of land right now that was owned by the Arizona State Land Trust is bigger than Gilbert, Chandler, and Mesa, all 3 suburbs combined, okay? So that is going to be a huge a huge development. That's good because we need more supply for people moving down here. Now, with that, it's going to constrain a lot more supplies and resources to do so. But we have to have that if we're going to continue to grow at the rate that the country is demanding us grow, because of all the people that are interested in living at least part-time or full-time in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, when it comes to building and the housing in this area, outside of Superstition Vistas, which is huge on the East Valley, there's still plenty of other building going on around the rest of the Phoenix area. And we mean quite a bit, as much as we can possibly handle, because right now, turn times on new construction for even a tract home can take 9 to 12 months right now. That's how constrained they are by supplies and labor, okay? So, but in the West Valley, out by Glendale, Surprise, Waddell, there's a lot of building. If you go out to Buckeye and Goodyear, there is a ton of building. Buckeye is huge, guys. Buckeye is actually larger on square miles for land than the city of Phoenix itself. So Buckeye is going to be a force to reckon with out there in the West Valley as well. Not as big as Superstition Vistas on the far east side, but almost bookends on both sides with Buckeye and Superstition Vistas as that comes up as two very large communities slash suburbs. So that is the new construction kind of scene that's going on here in Phoenix, because we need that housing. But with housing, we need a lot of water, okay? And so I really want to talk on the water issue here today, because that's the biggest long-term threat that Phoenix and Arizona, but Phoenix really faces, okay? And there's some people who are like, it's not going to be good enough, so we need to get out of here. You know, you hear things like in Casa Grande, for example, the water supply is not guaranteed for a certain type of product class, you know, whether it be single-family houses or any development in Casa Grande. For certain things, there is water guaranteed for 100 years. For other things, there is not. For anything that's already existing, it definitely is guaranteed. But you have places like Strawberry up north in Arizona, these smaller towns that are having some long-term issues with water and the guarantee of it, if that makes sense, okay? Now, sidebar, there is water and a lot of it, okay? How we choose to get it to certain cities and municipalities is a whole new issue or conversation. And as with anything, I hate to say this, but follow the money. So hold on, Kelly, what you're trying to tell me is there's plenty of water that it could be guaranteed for 100 years for pretty much all these places in Arizona. They're just maybe not doing so because so-and-so doesn't know the right person, or not politically connected to the right person to get the contract to do. I know it's shocking to probably believe that, but yes, there is some of that happening, okay? I'm not saying that's the only reason, that's for sure. Please don't hear me say that, but there is some of that going on, unfortunately, right? So let's now go back to topic, okay? So there is a good amount of water. Now, here's how the water works in Phoenix. Almost all the water used in Phoenix gets reclaimed and reused. What? Are you serious, Kelly? Yeah, no, it really does. It gets reclaimed and reused. In fact, one major plant releases 53 million gallons of water a day into its wetland areas and canal area systems, okay? So in Arizona, we have these canals that you can see from driving on certain roads and bridges, right? These canals with water in them, and some are really skinny, some are really wide, and they hold a lot of the reclaimed water that is sitting there ready to be used as they go through water treatment plants, all right? It's an interesting system that's used, but that's the way it works, and it works actually really well. There's also a wetland system as well, where they pour water into certain reservoirs that are like wetlands, where it actually doubles up as wetlands, just that, for ducks and certain birds and geese or whatever, but also is a holding pot to be actually reused for human beings and then get recycled back into it. It's this whole system. It's really cool how it's complicated, and the average person has no idea. They just see a wetland thinking, oh, that's just a lake that, you know, just sits there for some ducks. Not necessarily the case always, all right? Arizona also supplies 23 billion gallons to a nuclear power plant, and 16 billion gallons of water are allocated to crops. Now, the good news is that most single-family homes don't use that much water. In fact, only 14% of single-family homes actually have grass anymore in the Phoenix, Arizona area, which is down from over 80% of all homes had some sort of natural grass back in the 1980s. So that is really, really cool that a lot of people now are starting to realize that part of your responsibility of living in the desert climate is that you're probably not going to have certain things that are not native to the desert. So people are doing artificial turf if they want grass and green. They're doing low maintenance rock and granite, crushed granite for front and backyard landscaping as well. Phoenix is served by the Verde River, the Salt River, and the Colorado River. In fact, 40% of all of its water comes from the Colorado River. Now, Lake Mead is where the Colorado River dams up in northern Arizona / Nevada border, and Lake Mead actually will provide that dam most of that water that comes down to the Phoenix, Arizona area. Now, the downside of Lake Mead is that its levels have dropped 120% over the last 20 years. That is quite a bit. But the good news is that a lot of that water is not wasted, because as it comes down and is released down to Phoenix, Phoenix currently only uses 2/3 of its water that it's entitled to. It actually stores about 12 billion gallons of water actually in its own aquifers and the aquifers that sit below Tucson. And then for exchange for storing the water in Tucson gets first rights to use some of that water if and when they need it. So it actually is a reciprocal relationship, which is kind of nice. Because the reason why Phoenix only uses 2/3 is because they are putting so much technology into water saving methods and issues. And the residents overall in Phoenix are pretty accommodating to actually understand not to use a surplus of water. So let's talk about this aquifer system. This is really cool, guys. Below Phoenix and below Tucson, there's bigger ones, but there are these aquifers that sit below the surface level that you could almost think of drilling a well, right? These aquifers that are huge, and they store just gallons upon gallons upon gallons of water underneath the city, if you will, right? And that land, which is really, really interesting. And so when Phoenix gets extra water they're not using, they store it there to then be used when the time comes that they need to actually use it. Now, the good news is they don't always take their full allotment of water that they could use or entitled to if they aren't going to use it. And what this system is called is system conservation, where they actually save water. That water actually never leaves Lake Mead, as an example, and sits up there, and it sits back in Lake Mead, keeping the water level as high as possible there, so that it doesn't get used. So it's a really cool system of conserving water that way. So in conclusion, does Arizona, especially Phoenix, Arizona, have enough water for 100 years or longer, or not? That's what we want to know, right? And according to the Arizona Department of Water Resources, Phoenix currently has 90 million acre feet of water, which should last over 300 years to come. So that is really, really good news, guys. Now, that means that it's going to come at a cost of developing new technology, or I should say, implementing the technology that we already have to actually continue to do certain things to save and conserve that water. That is estimated to come at a cost currently of about a future $500 million over the course of time to maintain and use that technology to continue to conserve that water in the most appropriate way to hopefully keep, as of right now, that 300-year surplus of water that we have currently in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and hopefully continue to save more and more and more so that we can actually extend that time frame to be much longer than 300 years. So that is the facts, the data that are currently out there. So I know there's a lot of emotion and a lot of opinions surrounding this, but that's the data, that's the research I found when exploring this. And so that's really good news for the long-term sustainability of Phoenix. Now, obviously, if more people continue to pour into Phoenix, we're gonna have to obviously continue to save water at a even higher rate to try to maintain that same 300 years of surplus of water, if that makes sense. So that's yet to be seen. We'll see if we can do that. But hopefully as people come in, they get educated by the current Phoenicians and natives that are already here, so that they don't come in here and they expect to have a certain type of lifestyle of water usage that they may have had in Minnesota where they had 10,000 lakes. We don't. All right, guys. So anyways, if you have any other questions about this, guys, please give us a call. Let us know what you think of the viability and long-term sustainability of the Phoenix population, as well as the water supply. We'd love to know what you think. Call us at 480-660-5974. That's 480-660-5974. Text us, call. We'd love to hear from you guys and answer any questions you have about water in Arizona or any real estate related issues in Arizona, guys. Call us at that number. You can always email us at info@kellycookhomes.com or check us out on Instagram daily at Kelly Cook Real Estate Group. Thank you so much, guys. We are so passionate. please subscribe, ring the notification bell. We're putting out 2 videos every single week for your enjoyment. And until next time, don't forget,